Each day, the world faces a bunch of problems which affects a lot of citizens in each different countries. We, citizens, wish to live in a healthier environment which can help our body prevent from sick due to the air pollution we breathe. According to the World Health Organization, around 99% of the world's population live in places where air quality levels exceed their limits. In a span of 32 years, 1990 to 2022 specifically, the world gained 2.6 billion and counting of populations, which means the greater number of people that may result to problems in the future. In this info video, we will discuss ecological reservoir or the environment of air and their corresponding ecological cycle, which is oxygen cycle for you or audience to understand deeper on the air we breathe, also to know how to take care and appreciate the nature on our surroundings. So sit down, relax, and enjoy the breathe, prolonging lives of the community.
The biogeochemical cycle is the biological, chemical, and geological process where the nutrients move around within the non-living things and living things. First, the matter is conserved and distributed to the biotic and non-biotic things, such as the biotic is referring to the living things such as the biosphere, and the abiotic, which refer to the non-living things such as the atmosphere, hydrosphere, and lithosphere. The biogeochemical cycle is divided into two parts of cycle. We have the gas cycle, including the carbon, oxygen, and water cycle, and also the sedimentary cycle, which include the sulfur, phosphorus, and rock cycle, and other. To better understand the process of the biogeochemical cycle, the energy that we get is from our environment, such as the atmosphere, biosphere, and lithosphere. And this energy that the producer receives will pass on to the consumer by the process of consuming it, and back to the environment, and the process will repeat.
Perhaps the most important gas in the air is the oxygen, which is necessary for most living things, like us humans, to continue living. Oxygen can take on many forms as it moves around the four spheres of the earth, of which is what we call the oxygen cycle.
What is the oxygen cycle? The oxygen cycle refers to the movement of oxygen through the atmosphere, biosphere, and lithosphere. This biogeochemical cycle is mainly responsible for maintaining atmospheric oxygen. The entire cycle can be summed up by starting with the process of photosynthesis. During the day, plants use sunlight, water, and carbon dioxide to create energy, and the oxygen gas is liberated as a byproduct of this process. During the night, plants take in oxygen and release carbon dioxide to maintain their metabolism. The second process is the respiration. This is where organisms take in oxygen and release carbon dioxide into the air. And the last process is the repeat, where carbon dioxide is again taken up by plants for photosynthesis. Therefore, the oxygen cycle is the Earth's way of creating, using, and replenishing one of the basic building blocks of life on Earth. Thus, plants on the Earth must be preserved as these are the primary source of our life force.
Due to increased fossil fuel burning, overgrazing, and population growth, current oxygen consumption over land is significantly larger than oxygen production from the terrestrial environment, disrupting the atmospheric oxygen balance and producing a drop in atmospheric oxygen concentration. In the tropics, the fossil fuel oxygen flux has been gradually increasing. On the other hand, the wildfire flow shows a negative trend, which could be attributed to the decline in the wildfire activity in the recent decades. The northern hemisphere temperature zones consume the most oxygen, accounting for more than half of the worldwide anthropogenic oxygen flux. Wildfires are common in the northern hemisphere's boreal region, and they burn more oxygen than fossil fuel combustion.
Using Le Chatelier's principle, we first need to define its meaning. According to LibreText 2020, it states that if a dynamic equilibrium is disturbed by changing the conditions, the position of equilibrium shifts to counteract the change to re-establish an equilibrium. In short, if a system is exposed to a stress, the system will shift to re-obtain an equilibrium. Relating it to an anthropogenic perspective, let's say we have the perfect weather, clear skies, low humidity. Then because of air pollutants, the stressors, our weather will constantly change to produce much clearer oxygen.
Invasive species is an organism that is not indigenous or native to a particular area. Any non-native species that harm the local ecosystem is considered to be an invasive species. But not all non-native species are invasive. To be invasive, a species must adapt to the new area easily and they must reproduce quickly. Many invasive species thrive because they outcompete the native species for food. Furthermore, some invasive species do great harm to the economy. Example of it is the water hyacinth. It is a plant native to South America that has become an invasive species in many parts of the world. People often introduce the plant which grows in the water because of its pretty flowers. But the plant spread quickly and that result the often choking out of native wildlife. Invasive species are capable of causing extinctions of native plants and animals, reducing biodiversity, competing with native organisms for limited resources, and altering habitats. This can result in huge economic impacts and fundamental disruptions of coastal and Great Lakes ecosystem.
Several tiny chemicals in cells can activate or deactivate genes through epigenetics. The epigenetic marker may be considered factors that regulate gene activity by altering the genome's expression. Hesperidin and other histone modifications can influence epigenetic markers as well. The epigenome can be influenced by aspects such as a person's diet, contact with contaminants, and usage of medicines. It is possible to pass on epigenetic alterations as cells divide from one generation to the next. The study of epigenetics is essential because it helps us to better understand how our cells and bodies function from our activities. For example, an epigenetic change may result in cancer and tumors.
After hearing all the discussions of my colleagues, do you have any realizations right now? As stated earlier, air is what we living things need in order to live here. Harming the environment will just result to harming ourselves in the future generations. They are the ones who will pay on the negligence done by people who are not thinking wisely if an act is right or wrong. Let's be independent enough to make a movement in ourselves rather than waiting others to do so. We are Group 2, we influence, we talk, we stand out, we share, and we can make a change. This is Project Invasive, Breathe, prolonging lives of the community. See you on the next one.